Let's talk about Victor Badminton strings and how they feel from my experience of stringing them, as well as their playing performance, and why there'll be a second part to this Victor Badminton strings comparison video, and I'll explain that first. Badminton strings, like shuttles, are consumables within our badminton game, and it's something that we replace rather often, or at least you should, to have the best feel and performance. Because of this, manufacturers design and produce a wide range of badminton strings to cater to everyone's needs. But we do have a little challenge, at least with Victor, and why there'll be a part 2 to this video, and it's down to the availability of said strings. I'm based in the UK, and Victor Badminton strings come through Victor Europe, and unfortunately, there are only very limited options for players to choose from if they want to go with Victor strings. A quick look on the website shows that you can only get 5 models of strings for the VBS variant, the 63, 66 Nano and 70, whilst for the newer VS model strings, you only have access to the 65 and multicolored 69. But from Victor Global's website, there are these other strings available on their portfolio, the VBS 68, 68 Power, 69 Nano and also the 70 Power, as well as a limited edition multicolored Hello Kitty VS 63. I understand that some of these strings were previously available in Europe, but not in the current catalogue. I'm also aware there's a new VBS 61 ultra thin string, which could be super interesting as a direct competitor to your Nexus Aerosonic string. I can't wait to test that one out. Let me know in the comment section below about the availability of Victor Badminton strings where you live. Do you have access to most of the models I've just listed, or are you in the same boat as I am? In any case, let's focus on the strings we do have here today. The VBS 63, which is Antonsen's string of choice, the VBS 66 Nano, which is Lee Zii Jia's choice, the VBS 70, which I remember to be Wang and Huat's preferred option, and this multicolored VS 69, which I don't think any pros are using at the moment. In terms of experience with the Victor strings, I've used them for a very long time, and I'm not sure how many of you guys remember this one. This is a pack of the VS 850 Nano from Victor, which I have saved, I guess for sentimental reasons. I can't remember accurately when did I start using them, but it was around the 2010 to 2012 period, and I went through so many reels of them. For my own records, I had 37 restrings of the VS 850 on my own rackets in 2012, 33 in 2013, and 25 in 2014. Should I break out these last two and put them on my rackets? What do you think? Whilst you're thinking, remember to protect your precious badminton rackets from chips and scratches with the premium racket protection tape with free delivery worldwide on tkyw.com/shop. We also have limited edition player signed prints too. In terms of packaging, Victor has obviously moved on from the VS 850's design to these, which I believe are one generation later than the 850s, before settling on the current version of VBS strings packaging. The purple VS string packaging is Victor's latest string packing design. Although I normally string in reels, I do enjoy that there are little tear tabs on the packs, as it helps stringers save a few seconds every time they open a new pack. Also, some packs of the string will also have this little card as part of the string packaging to help both player and stringer. Not all packs have it, so your mileage may vary. Either way, your stringer should already have a system in place to record what string tension you prefer during your restrings. In terms of string category, Victor Badminton strings are currently split into 3 categories: high resilience or high repulsion, durability and control. Pretty standard sets of string categories. Straight out of the pack, the VBS 63 has very fine and fairly smooth texture, so it doesn't burn when you pull strings through during the stringing process. The stringing process is also a straightforward one, as the string isn't overly soft, especially for a super thin string. In terms of playing performance, the 63 does feel very nice and is super responsive. It's a pretty standard trait of super thin strings. Shots have that immediate pop off the string bed with a fairly crisp but slightly metallic feel. I call it a bit pingy and certainly a high repulsion string. Whilst the 63, 66 Nano and 70 all state that they're medium feel, I find the 63 to be on the slightly softer side of medium. If you have medium, medium stiff and medium soft, the 63 is in the medium soft category in my books. It does feel pretty pleasant and nothing wrong with that at all. The 63, being a super thin string, does sound very nice with each hit, and obviously the more power you can generate, the louder the shuttle will come off your strings. But as with all super thin strings, durability is something that you will have to compromise on. I have my rackets strung with the VBS 63 with my usual 27 by 29 pounds in tension, and even with racket rotation and no more than 1 to 2 sessions a week, the 63 lasted 3 to 4 weeks for me, about 10 to 12 12 hours of on-court time. To be fair, it's actually alright for a super thin string, but it's something you need to be aware of. And speaking of being aware, you need to be aware that Central Sports have got all your badminton needs covered. They have been the home of badminton in the UK for more than 40 years. It's a one-stop shop for every badminton player, whether you're just getting started, regular club player, or competing at the highest level. Central Sports will cater to all your badminton needs, and you can get your favorite racket brands with free upgrade, including getting a free custom autograph on your racket, where you can have a flag and custom text on your favorite racket. Central Sports also provide clothing, shoe, and bag customization options for you, so you can personalize your equipment to your liking. They look good, don't they? You can check out the store in person and online, and remember to always use my discount code of CKYW for additional discounts too. Thanks again to Central Sports. We now look at the VBS 66 Nano, and I guess the VBS 66 Nano is Victor's solution to getting a good compromise between a fairly high repulsion string with added durability compared to the 63. However, there's one little problem. It looks like the English description of the 66 Nano string isn't very well translated, and there's also a typo in there. Not a great start if you're someone who doesn't read any Mandarin and is just looking in your badminton store for some new string options. If you're someone who's new to Victor, this doesn't inspire confidence, and I personally would expect better from a brand who's part of the big 3 major badminton brands. However, bad translation and typo aside, this 66 Nano feels like it has the same fine texture on the strings coating as the 63, but you can also see the difference in color, especially when both strings are labeled as white colored string here. The 63 has a brighter bleached white, whilst the 66 Nano is slightly warmer. Obviously you will notice this once it's strung, so no problems there. In terms of stringing, it was super easy to string and I didn't find anything unusual with it, so it's all good there. So, how does it feel? Personally, I found the 66 Nano to have quite a metallic feeling. It does have a nice medium feel again, but perhaps on the slightly medium stiff side in my experience. Additionally, it's not as bouncy as the 63 and it's also quite slippery at times. Not helpful when you're looking for a lot of bite on the shuttle. You guys would know that my normal string is the Yonex Aero Bite, and I absolutely love the amount of bite that the string has. A stringer's nightmare, but a player's dream. And this 66 Nano is a slight opposite. Super easy to string, but doesn't have too much bite. I also found that the 66 Nano felt amazing when fresh, but does go a little dead after a while. So it's not as responsive compared to when it's fresh. Durability is pretty good for a 0.66mm string, so that's a big positive for any player looking for that. Overall, I think it's a good standard bearer for Victor's strings, as a 0.66 to 0.68mm string is kind of the standard for badminton string diameter nowadays, and this 0.66mm string is a good option. But if you want something livelier, go for the 63, especially if you don't mind the more frequent breakages. We now move categories and go into Victor's durability category of strings, the VBS 70. And this is a 0.70mm string, which a few years ago would be the standard bearer diameter for badminton, but now it feels slightly on the thicker side. But it is ideal for players who are looking for a longer lasting string. In terms of stringing experience, I found the string to have quite a lot of texture, which I ended up with a little bit of string burn when I pulled through my fingers too fast. It also had a bit of stickiness to it too, which will help with shuttle control and bite. Additionally, the VBS 70 is also very easy to string due to its string stiffness, so it was super straightforward on that front. On the playing side, I was quite impressed with this, as thicker, durable strings generally feel spongy without much feel. But the VBS 70 responded really well and is on the softer side of the medium feel. I would even rate it as soft feeling string. However, the string itself was fairly grippy, which made shuttle control pretty enjoyable for me. Additional thicker strings also traditionally have that slightly spongier feel, as they do stretch a little bit more over time as they have slightly more material to begin with, and this VBS 70 does add to that, giving you that added playability and confidence to really go for your shots and not having to worry about string breakages there. On the sound side, clearly the 70 will sound lower pitched than its thinner gauge cousins, so nothing special there. Overall, I was very pleasantly surprised with the 70 here. Lastly, let's take a look at the newer kit on the block, the VS69. The VS69 is unique for its multicolored segments from a single length of string, and with the sample that I have here going from blue to purple to pink. The VS69 is released as a durability string, so its 0.69mm diameter was not a surprise. In terms of stringing, I had to resort to a one-piece stringing method with the VS69, as I wasn't sure how the strings would turn out if I cut into two lengths and used the normal two-piece stringing technique for my racket. I personally find one-piece stringing a little bit more of a hassle compared to two-piece stringing, but the string itself felt perfectly fine throughout the whole stringing process. although the 69 isn't as sticky or textured as the 70, so that made things slightly easier. In terms of play, I found the 69 feels slightly stiffer compared to the 70. The package of the VS69 said it was a soft string, but I beg to differ. It actually felt stiffer than the 70, and I would actually swap the two feels rating around. The 70 can be soft, and this one is a medium. Medium to medium stiff in my opinion. The 69 also isn't as grippy compared to the 70 as well, and this wasn't a surprise having felt it having less textures as well as less stickiness during the stringing process. I also felt that the 69 was less forgiving than the 70, perhaps due to its slightly stiffer feel. I also noticed that I always prefer the 70 when both rackets were side by side for comparison. The 69 also feels slightly less refined compared to the 70 in this instance. But looking at retail prices, I then noticed that the 69 being almost a third cheaper than the 70, so I guess this explains why the 70 feels nicer than the 69. Oh, by the way, the 69's tension and tension over time is pretty good for a slightly thicker string, so that's an advantage for the 69. Before I end this video, I also want to say a few things about the rating system from the packaging from these four strings. Let's start with the 69 and 70 since we've just looked at them, and the stat that immediately jumps out at me is the hitting sound, where the 70 is an 8 out of 10 and the 69 is a 6 out of 10. What is more surprising is that the 63 and 66 Nano were both rated lower than the 70 at only 7 out of 10. This makes me wonder what was actually measured from these stats. Is it how loud the hits are or how high pitched they are? Either way, I would normally expect a thinner string to sound better than a thicker one due to its slightly higher pitched sound. Additionally, the packaging also states that the 70, having less control than the 69, does not reflect how I felt how the strings performed. I would swap them around with the 70 having more control than the 69. But both the 66 Nano and 63 also have a 7 out of 10 rating for control as well. So I do wonder how they measure this, as I do find most grip and control with the 63 than the 70, before coming back with the 66 Nano and then the 69. The performance gaps are slightly closer between certain models, but wider in others. I think Victor might have gone a bit too conservative in this instance with their rating system, and I look forward to seeing a more accurate and representative rating systems across their range of strings. In the meantime, let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions, whilst I try and get my hands on the remaining models of strings across Victor's full range, especially with the new VBS 61, and come back for part 2 of this string comparison. I hope you find this useful, and I'll see you in the next one.